Gasperini. I'm here today being interviewed as the President and CEO of the National Council of Agriculture Employees, NCAE, a national agricultural trade association in Washington, D.C., and as the President and CEO of ASHCA, the Agricultural Safety and Health Council of America, a 501c3 educational organization based in my hometown of Leesburg, Virginia, focused on agricultural safety and health from the farmer all the way to the manufacturer level. Thank you. Our safety grant program at ASHCA started out a little less focused than it is now, but we have, and you can find the information in the ASHCA website, ashca.org, on the safety grants. Those grants are designed for anyone, whether it's an academic, a medical facility, a grower. We have given grants to some growers. We've given a lot of grants to dealers and distributors and local cooperatives as well. Those grants, we've tweaked the qualifications a little bit. They started out very local, and some of them had only local interest. We've tweaked that to say that we want those grants to address a safety issue or a safety practice that we can take as ASHCA nationally, publish on our website, and share with people in other parts of the country that could make a difference. One of the big ones recently has been, the last few years, has been grain entrapment. We have another grain entrapment grant that is being worked on this year. Others have been fall prevention, tethering, ROPS, things like that. Everyday safety practices that should be done as a routine and not as an exception, but making it easier so that it's easy for growers to see how to implement and how to afford to implement. And we will announce those typically in about September of each year, grant them in January or February, and the report outs come towards the end of the year, and then we'll start to share that information. In our website soon, you'll be able to see the results of last year's grants and apply those to your own business if they're applicable. Yes, and if I chuckle a little over the evidence-based terminology, it's a great example of how terminology matters and how important terminology is when we talk about safety or any other issues across a wide range of industries. For CropLife America members, dealers, distributors, manufacturers, and even for farmers, that's the equivalent of talking about science-based regulation and science-based activity. The evidence-based piece just means that you shouldn't do something unless you have evidence that the problem you're trying to you're trying to address actually exists, and that the actions you want to take to address it can actually make an impact and make the situation better or change behaviors. You asked me about an example, and my first thought was, oh, how am I going to think of an example of that? And then it occurred to me, we had a great example a few years ago that many of your listeners probably were engaged in. About 4 years ago, the Department of Labor proposed massive sweeping child labor rules in agriculture. Everybody in agriculture will remember those. The American Farm Bureau stepped up and led the effort with their grassroots network, and all of us worked with them and pushed that back. It was so different and so radical that it frightened farm families all across the country. It was an example of non-evidence-based reaction or regulation in that they identified that yes, there are children, too many children, injured and killed on farms every year. Then they took that as a general, widespread problem and applied draconian fixes to that in their regulation, which in retrospect probably would not have addressed the problem. In the first place, they didn't identify the problem properly, and then they addressed it with policies that would have impacted ag businesses and probably not changed the results. So that would have been a result of very poor use of evidence-based regulation or science-based regulation. So the bottom line there is that if you're going to take action to improve safety, you need to have evidence that the problem you've identified is really a genuine problem, and then you need to have evidence or science on whether or not the methods you plan to use to attack it and change it can really work. And if they can't, you need to use other methods to attack that, because the goal is 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries. And there are ways to approach that, but you have to approach them properly, or it's not economically feasible, and it actually turns people against safety, which unfortunately was the result of the DOL's last effort. There is. All of the distributor and formulator members out there around the country, whether you're a dealer locally or a large regional, statewide regional, or a national organization, you are part of the mix of ag safety. You working together with all of the farmers who are your customers and all of the other manufacturers and others in the value chain in agriculture are a critical piece of both the ag labor issue from the NCAE side, helping us to resolve those issues so that farmers have the workers they need to produce the crops necessary economically so that America can continue to feed the world and feed ourselves. And from the ASHCA side, you are part of the safety mix that has to be in place so that everyone in agriculture is striving towards 0 accidents, 0 deaths on the farm or in the workplace, so that we can have a safe workplace, so that every one of us can come to work every day and be as productive as possible and go home safe to our families and continue to make American agriculture as great as it is. And I thank you for the opportunity for talking with you and visiting with you. I invite you all to look at both websites, ncaeonline.org and ashca.org, and use everything that's there available to you that's helpful to you, and to call on me at any time to answer your questions and to work with you and to help you with programming. Thank you.